hello. Thanks for watching this video. I'm currently doing a Stephen King read-through that I'm enjoying quite a lot, and I decided to just throw out a tier list of his. This will just be for the works from the 1970s that were published, and it doesn't include things that were maybe published in the 70s in magazines and stuff, but appeared in later collections. I'll do those later. So this would be basically the novels from the 1970s and then the night shift stories. And then I'm doing this partially because there's a lot of tier lists for Stephen King's works, but they often don't mix the stories up with the novels, so I guess that's a little bit novel. A new approach maybe, but let's try this. And yeah, let's go. Oh, by the way, I will probably do other tier lists, but maybe for the 80s. In the 90s and later on, I might do two per decade, just because, there's a lot of stories, obviously, a lot of stories in books. So anyways, let's start with the novels and then go into the stories. So what do we got here first? The Long Walk. The Long Walk, let's put here for now. I might move these around, but we'll start with The Long Walk right here. This is it's a story that I've read a few times. It's the first. It's not the first of the Bachman stories. Rage is. I think it's the second. It might be the first written though, but it appears second in the Bachman books. This is of course about young men, teenagers who are basically in a kind of a Hunger Games kind of long walk. It's a really original idea at the time. Very much. We've seen a lot of other stories since then. This is before reality TV, of course, and before the Hunger Games, and it's pretty unique in that way. It kind of looks like the Running Man 2, which we'll talk about in a later tier list, I suppose, in that it's like competition and it's disinfected people who get involved in it. So there's some really interesting cultural things and social things. He's trying to build up a little bit of a world. There's a little world building here, which is fun. I think what I also like the diversity of the characters, because even though it's set in Maine, we meet people from all over America with different backgrounds and different approaches, and we hear their stories, because most of the novel is just people talking. It does wear out its welcome a little bit, so there's a lot of very juvenile stuff in it too. I think this was written maybe like in college. Whatever. Let's put it here. It might be a C. I don't know. Of course, this is going to be by Stephen King standards. I think Stephen King's great, obviously, but I don't want to put everything up here. So what's next? Carrie. Oh, Carrie's great. Carrie is a wonderful novel. The writing style is very, very nice. It's really cool that Stephen King starts out with such a really fun way of telling the story by combining the narrative of Carrie Otto White, with the later reflections by writers, the scholars, popular journalism, participants who later wrote memoirs of it, like the Susan Snell book, the book within the book. That's a lot of fun. And of course, how he makes this almost science fiction-y story so terrifying, especially towards the end. The relationship with her and her mother is really where a lot of the fear, I think, is. And then the terror, but that's kind of contrasted with the terror society feels over what Carrie did. And then just the torture of high school is another great element of this story. Obviously, these stories have had a lot of legs. Rage. I don't know. I don't want to put the Rage. I would put Rage above the Long Walk of the two Bachman stories we have here. This has been sort of self-banned by Stephen King. It's not in recent publications of the Bachman books. So you have to get an old edition, a used edition, to find this. In the Bachman books, you might be able to find the original publication there too. I only read this one once. And I didn't do it in this recent reread because I had recently read it just a year or so ago for a podcast. I think that what's really cool about this story is how King kind of explores the psychology of high school really well. And obviously, our main character doesn't handle it very well, but the description of the tyranny of high school and how the hostage situation sort of becomes a group therapy session is for high school students is really, really fun. I think that's a wonderful element of the story. I don't remember all the details about it and all the characters in it, but I think it's a little more engaging than the Long Walk. The Long Walk just sort of drags a little bit, so let's put that there. Um, the Stand. All right, The Stand. We'll of course add the uncut edition. This is the shorter version of The Stand, the one that isn't set in the 90s. Yeah, let's do it this way. Let's put The Stand above Carrie a little bit. It is such an important book that he wrote. I think what is really nice about this version of The Stand is it really is a novel of the 70s so much. With it's really building off of like this boomer experience of the 60s and kind of the 60s counterculture with the way flag is presented, with the language, and it's all the whole story is sort of like the hippies versus the squares at the end. Like the people who go to Las Vegas are all the um, the techs, right? The bosses, those types, and they kind of feed into the authoritarian culture. The bolder people are all like, again, the kind of social defective people in some way, the people that can't quite fit in society. But you also have the everyman characters there, which is great. I mean, the bolder mixed is a great mix of characters, but there are a bunch of different points of view there. But it is sort of like the hippies standpoint, the people who don't want to have a state, right? It's like a state versus the ones who want to remain stateless. Um, and I think this is made explicit, like how in Las Vegas people can't do drugs, and I guess that's not really explored too much in the bolder sections about crime and order there. They do with I think it's in one chapter or so, but that might be in the extended version. Sometimes I can't differentiate what's in the two. I know some of the big changes. Also, there's such a big problem with the rewrite in that he just like, I don't want to say it was like a Google replace or like a find and replace with the dates, but it wasn't just that. But sometimes, like with the language and the settings, it still feels like it's in the 70s, even though it's supposed to be set in the 90s. So that might make this a stronger standalone book than the other ones. But the stuff he adds in the other one is really good too, or the stuff that gets restored. So I don't know. Yeah, but better than Carrie. Oh, it's certainly a more important one, but it's not an S tier. I don't know if we have any S tiers here. We'll have to see. Let's see. Salem's Lot. Where do we put Salem's Lot? There's a lot. I've read this one probably 3 times recently, and a couple times as a kid. It affected me a lot more as a kid than I think it does now. It's the best parts of here is like really the world building and the building of the town. The vampire stuff doesn't move me quite as much anymore. It's a really standard kind of image of the vampire compared to like stuff we've seen since the 80s with some of the reinterpretation of vampires. And there's a lot to say about the classic interpretation of vampires too. I mean, the Dracula kind of mode. It's still in the horror genre. It doesn't enter into the romance as some modern vampire tales do. But it's still pretty. We've seen this stuff before, right? But the setting is really where this is at. I think what really saves this book in a lot of ways is the whole Marston house, the exploration of the evil house, which is something King was really interested in early in his career. You don't see it in these other books yet, but you'll see it in The Shining. You see it in It, of course. Does it come up in any of these others? Not really, but you see it enough that it's noticeable as an early theme he's playing with. He's getting this from Shirley Jackson. I think Shirley Jackson is the epigraph quote at the beginning of this book. So yeah, I like this one. Let's keep it here. There's too many problems with the book. Not just well, really made the biggest one is like the Susan character is kind of boring and uninteresting, and the even Ben is kind of not the most fascinating character as the head. Mark Petrie's a much more interesting, I think, than him, and we don't see that much of him. I was actually shocked at how little we saw of Mark Petrie when I read this the last time. I thought there was more of him, but he really is not much of a character until the midpoint of the story. But the town building, the character building is great. I think I like Carrie more though. I think Carrie's tightness and um, you know, I feel more uncomfortable, I guess, reading Carrie in the sense of the emotions that come out from when you're supposed to get when reading horror. I feel more of it with Carrie than I do with Salem's Lot. Um, well, let's make Shining an S tier here, um, just to make sure we have one. That might be the strongest of these. I think it's going to get kind of goofy with the stories, I suppose, because you kind of judge stories a little bit differently than you judge the the novels. But I think The Shining is you have the best of all these books. You have, I think, the most compelling characters. The Stand has so many characters, but I don't know. There's a lot. If I were to do a character by character analysis of The Stand, I could probably say quite a lot, and none of the characters are as like interesting as Jack Torrance or Danny Torrance, for that matter. The other characters in The Shining don't get as much focus, I guess. Wendy, is kind of a second tier character, and it would have been nice to get more from her point of view. Um, she's kind of like that protective mother throughout the book, and a bit annoying at times. Halloran is the other major character. Of course, the Overlook, maybe. So if we got three main characters here, it's the Overlook, Jack Torrance, and Danny Torrance, and they're all some of his best characters from this period, I think. And I think one thing to say here is like, while Salem's Lot, um, well, let's look at all four of these. Actually, if we take all four of these, they're all eucatastrophes in a way, right? Maybe not Salem's Lot so much in that they have to kind of come back and destroy the town. So it's not real. So let's set that one aside. But Carrie is a eucatastrophe in a way. I mean, in the real sense, not just a happy accident, but actually in the with what you think of when you think of catastrophe, right? It's really um, you know something that breaks open the plot that happens kind of by random, right? Like just the right things fall into place for something to happen. For Carrie, it's the pig blood right at the moment when she's on stage, and the bully's acting at the same time she was going to be on stage, and that may have been created to get, but her having that ability in that moment is kind of the convergence of events. In The Stand, it's of course with the trash can man bringing the nuke into Las Vegas at the same moment that the execution of Ralph and uh, what's that other guy's name, Larry, is supposed to take place. And then in The Shining, though, The Shining, I think it's the most well constructed of these, in that it's I mean the hotel getting so obsessed with getting Danny's ghost, soul, whatever, into the hotel that they forget about the boiler. And that's what allows Jack to have his redemptive moment, destroy the Overlook, and that's it's wonderful stuff. And some of the last moments with Jack are really, really shocking, I think, and there's really scary moments in this book, I think. I just recently reread this one as well. So is that all the novels? Uh, oh, now we got one more here. The Dead Zone. Ooh, the Dead Zone. I don't know. Let's put it above the Bachman ones. Um, I did a video about the Dead Zone, about Stillwell perhaps being a psychic, and I still kind of hold by that. I recently read this one too. I've been obviously reading all of these. I still hold that Stillwell strikes me as a psychic, and that's so subtle. And I think there's enough evidence that it's true that I'm going to stick by it, even without King confirming it, as far as I know. But John Smith's story is great. To the extent it's a story about a teacher, and that's something that King does a lot. But it really is about teaching, in a way that maybe The Shining isn't. You don't see much teaching taking place there, but in The Dead Zone, a big chunk of the novel is John Smith teaching a young boy how to improve his reading, and that's really quite beautifully done, I think. Um, the the different stages he goes through as he learns he has this ability, what he's going to do about it. The Castle Rock stuff in The Dead Zone is still really sets up that town really well, and of course he's going to build off that in later books. I mean, the Dead Zone stuff never goes away. It's in Cujo. It's referred to in other Castle Rock stories, and it helps give that town some character. I don't know if it almost could be A tier in some ways, but I gotta go. Maybe we'll do this. Yeah, a good relation. I mean, a meaningful relationship between a man and a woman. The Stand has a lot of relationships, of course, but they're kind of colonial in a way. There's a lot of talk like, this is my woman, and a lot of jealousy about women, which seems really weird in a post-apocalyptic environment when institutions such as marriage would be abolished and they quickly go back to like coupling. And that's such a big part of the story. There's so much drama about the coupling. I don't know. There's so much that bothers me about The Stand. Anyways, I think The Dead Zone has the best relationship between uh, the main character and his once girlfriend. And when he comes out of the coma, she's married, and they have their moment together, and their friendship, and how she helps him kind of use his ability and that. And one of my favorite characters in this book is the doctor. The Polish doctor, who is such a sympathetic character, and it's great to see his interactions with John Smith. The Stillwell stuff is good too, and the climax is just wonderfully put together. So yeah, there's a lot I like about that. So for these stories, I just found images. A lot of these are from Dollar Babies, I think, adaptations and things. Obviously, there's not covers for a lot of these. So let's do this. Now, it's hard to compare these to novels, so like an A story and an A novel, they mean different things to me, but maybe we're just at this point ranking the Night Shift collection as its own thing, but we're doing them together. Woman in the Room. Oh yeah, this is good. I mean, a lot of the Night Shift stories really affect me even now. When I read them when I was young, and I've reread them at least 2 or 3 times since then. And yeah, Woman in the Room I think it's the last one in the collection, and it's not a horror story, although in some ways it feels like it, because you're seeing someone who has this burden of assisted suicide for his mother, and how he comes to that decision and the steps he takes. It's so well told. It's like a lot of these Night Shift stories. If you've been reading these early King stories and you see him as a horror writer or rather supernatural, and you see more mainstream kind of stories rooted in reality without supernatural elements, it really lets us know early on that King does do more. And so we're not surprised when we get to different seasons. Of course, that has supernatural elements in it too, but this one doesn't have that. It doesn't even have horror elements necessarily. It's just a man facing the reality of what he has to do for his mother. It's great. One for the Road. I don't know. One for the Road just exists. It's just is there. The people who love Salem's Lot will love this because it's sort of a sequel. It is creepy. The setting's good. Let's move it up just because of the setting. That's the winter scene and the old New Englanders like in the little, what's it like, they're in a gas station or something, who know something's up in Salem's Lot, but this rumor. It's a great bottle of something I've talked about is kind of the old stand watch idea. This comes from Pet Cemetery, but it's the idea that old people kind of maintain knowledge about the area and its horrors and its history. Something King is really, really interested in. I think it's such a contrast with Lovecraft, who's trying to like erase the past. And King always talks about how the past really can't be erased because people remember it. And that's in Lovecraft too, like the vernacular knowledge idea. But it's something that Lovecraft wants to keep that chest sort of closed. And King's like, no, we got to open it because people need to know this. So that's cool. The more I think about it, yeah, let's keep it as a B. It's just, not that much really happens. It's outside of the setting. I think it's not the most memorable story. Wasn't it? They just get the husband goes to the gas station. They come back, and the rest of the family's already been vampirized. It does work as an epilogue for Salem's Lot. So let's do Jerusalem's Lot if I can find it here. Where is it? Do I even have a picture of it? Well, I can't. I guess I don't. Well, that's on me. That's my mistake. Jerusalem's Lot. That'll be our D story, anyways. It's really, really bad. If it shows up, I'll put it there. Maybe it'll turn up. I really can't see it. But yeah, it's not good at all. It's the language of the letters. It's an epistolatory story, but it doesn't really work that well, and the language is off. I don't know. I just don't want to think too much about that story. It's King pretending to be writing Lovecraft, and he doesn't do Lovecraft well. He should do King, and you can tell he's influenced by Lovecraft, and even when he finally is able to write kind of a Lovecraft story later on in his career, Crouch End, Revival, of course, but he's so much more mature when he does it. This is like a young person trying to a young person writing Lovecraft. Doesn't work for me, anyways. All right, what's this? I'm not. Is that supposed to be? I don't know what that's supposed to be. That's supposed to be. That's not supposed to be a Lawnmower Man. Let's see. Let's find Graveyard Shift. Here, Graveyard Shift. I guess we can put it after One for the Road. This is just a really fun tale. This is the one where the workers that were getting time and a half to clean up the factory, during vacation time. It's like the 4th of July vacation or something, and so they're cleaning up this factory. Just haven't been cleaned in like decades, and they do it, and they're like college kids, working class kids, and a lot of it's about the hostility towards management. It's a lot of fun, and the whole plot revolves around these rats having evolved in the underneath this factory, but it ends up being kind of working class, young, poor students getting some sort of revenge on the bosses for leading them to their death. The interactions between the management and the workers is so drawn from life, I think, especially at that time, and it still is. I mean, still management has such contempt for workers, and you can tell that was on King's mind when he wrote this one. I love this story, even though it's hard to take seriously. I think it's a lot of fun. I really dig it. Oh, Night Surf. Let's just put this here. I don't think it has too much relation with The Stand, except maybe King playing with the idea of a plague wiping out the earth. I guess they could call it Captain Trips here, and then King uses that again. That's more of it's like the 60s, 70s kind of environment, I think. The characters aren't very likable. The story starts with them burning a person as a sort of a sacrifice. That could have been explored more, I think, in compelling ways, and he just doesn't do it. So we'll just leave it here. It's just, again, not very likable character. Our main point of view character is really a piece of garbage. So that's where I'll put it. I am the doorway. Mm, I don't know. I don't know why this story. This was the cover of the original Night Shift, wasn't it? Well, that's the wrong one. Here's I am the doorway. I got two I am the doorways. Um, that's why I don't have. I guess that's why I don't have Jerusalem's Lot. We'll use this one. It's a little creepier. This was the original cover of Night Shift. It was different, but the wrappings are on the eyeballs in the hand. It's good. Um, it's a good attempt at like a sci-fi story. I mean, I think it's an astronaut comes back from some voyage to like some other planet, and he's been sort of possessed by some alien who is seen through through him, through these eyeballs on his hand and other things, and basically controls him and leads him to commit murders. And so there's a little bit of a mystery about these murders and who's really responsible for it. And that's good stuff. Again, I don't think the characters are very memorable here. And I don't know, maybe it's a story I always kind of struggle with whenever I reread Night Shift. So that's that. The Mangler. The Mangler's next. The Mangler I like. Maybe this is really, really subjective, but I think this story is just a lot of fun with you know the kind of the mythology behind it and the whole concept. Again, it's another working class setting, but I just love the idea of this machine being possessed by a demon that got summoned just through accident, just through chance. Um, it's a joy, and the scene at the end, it's hard to take seriously at times, but I find it. I love this story, The Mangler. Actually, overall, I love the Night Shift stories mostly, but The Mangler is one I just have so much fun with. Um, the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman's next. Uh, I know I thought I had it here somewhere. Here, this was the picture I used for the Boogeyman. Another story where there's a character that's hard to like, because he seems to be an abusive father, like this macho kind of father who is mistreating his little infant kids, and really a big believer in like they have to sleep in the crib, right? And these kids die. They basically are dying of like sudden infant death syndrome because of neglect, but he somehow gets into his head. The boogeyman is there, and he's kind of a psycho character. Maybe there's really a boogeyman there. That's kind of, there's an end reveal that's a bit ambiguous, I suppose, and hard to maybe fully interpret. Though, of course, the whole story is a guy like in a shrink's office talking about this anxiety he's having. I kind of like in my head canon, he's basically a serial killer, killing off his family members and sort of justifying it. So it's more of a reality grounded story. But otherwise, the ending doesn't make too much sense if it's not in just the main character's head. But the main character is really, really not likable. He's really a jerk. He uses the N-word, I think, at times. He's obviously a horrible father, a horrible husband. But it is kind of a creepy story. I think he does something really great with this tale. I like it. I like it more than these two. Anyways. All right, Gray Matter. Gray Matter's been adapted in, I think, the first season of the new Creep Show adaptation. Someone who drinks a lot of beer can appreciate this story, but and what I like about this is also you got the old men the old men in the little convenience store, right? Who just talk stories and follow the news and and that's a lot of fun. The main story about a guy who drinks some like messed up beer and slowly is transformed. King does this I think it's in the first Creep Show movie, the one that he stars in, right, where the guy becomes a plant. That's kind of the very similar idea there. Maybe I should include that in the '80s, the Creep Show, because I think he wrote the screenplays, and some of those came from stories that were published earlier, but not they don't show up um, in these collections. Um, yeah, but very a similar story, anyways. But yeah, it's fun. It's like it's about a it's kind of like about a guy falling into alcoholism and can't leave his house, you know, right? Because he's always hungover and stuff. Kind of feels like that. Um, all right, Battleground. Let's just throw it here. I don't want to say too much about Battleground. Battleground is the story where some assassin, some warrior, mercenary type is being attacked by little toys. It's almost like a Philip Dick story more than it is a Stephen King story. And I think Philip Dick actually wrote a story very much like this, um, and it's better. That story is better than this one. This one is just for fun. It's just a quick 20-minute read that's kind of more of a joke than anything else. Um, Trucks, I'll put Trucks down here too. The setting is also good. I mean, even the ones I don't like, I think King is doing a good job with the setting in a lot of these. Even if the characters aren't memorable, um, he's always so aware of his settings and his. And here it's just the gas station, right? Another gas station shows up here. Um, it's either old men or people trapped in a gas station. You have it again with the mist, right? Um, of course, this is the one where the cars, the trucks come to life and start, you know, killing people, and then ultimately they're going to run out of gas, and then they figure out how to force the people into some kind of parasitical relationship where they won't be killed if they are refueled. That's a really creepy idea, I suppose. It's kind of like the vampire stories where the people become sort of the permanent food supply for vampires, but they can't kill all the people because they need to keep a supply, so they have to kind of farm them and stuff. That's sort of how the story ends up. And anyways, it's fun. It's great. Nothing too one memorable though. I haven't seen most of these adaptations though. Um, Sometimes they come back. Oh, this is good. Sometimes they come back as fun. It kind of reminds me of the Mangler. It has a lot like the Mangler, like everyday people opening up something like the Necronomicon and casting spells. That's how that happens here. The the hero moment, and sometimes they come back, where the character faces these old demons. Yeah, I think it's a great Stephen King moment, of people standing up to evil in a very very bold way, I suppose. The terror builds up as the classroom slowly changes, as these ghosts from the past come back and populate his classroom. And if you've ever taught, and I've been teaching high school and junior high lately, I can tell you it's like when you have that one student in the class that's just a toxic presence. It's real. I mean, it is a horror. It's possible to fear going to work sometimes just because of some toxic students, and that is is brought to life so well here. Um, so yeah, sometimes they come back. Good one if you haven't read it. I know they made an adaptation, which I don't think is pretty memorable, but read this. Strawberry Spring. Um, Strawberry. That's a serial killer one, right? Um, yeah, let's just throw it in B. Actually, I don't know what to say about it. I think it's another one where the setting is great. That's a college setting at this kind of what's the opposite of Indian summer, like the Strawberry Springs. So that's the um, is it the warm when spring comes early, but then it freezes again? It's like a false spring. Um, but the which one is it? Is this the yeah? It's one of a couple serial killer stories in Night Shift. Is this the one where the guy is the serial killer, or he finds out he is the serial killer? He just doesn't have memory of it. I don't know. I think it's good, but for some reason I'm blanking on some of the details here. I apologize. So let's just stick it here. I remembered it's good. The setting is what I remembered most about this. Um, the Ledge, another fun story. I think it's not great. It was adapted into, is it that Cat's Eye, one of the ones, as with Quitter's Inc., as we'll see in a minute. Um, it's another early story that's grounded in reality, but it's kind of so jokey it's hard to take serious. With you got this mobster living on this penthouse who makes people walk around the outside of the building to win some kind of bet. The banter between the main character and this mob boss is fun, but the characters are so stupid. I mean, our main character is an idiot. The mobster's wife is an idiot. Everyone's kind of it's it's hard to maintain credulity on this, but the walk around it I think is well written. Um, yeah, is he like a golf instructor or something? Starts sleeping with the mobster's wife. There's a creep show story that's a bit similar to that too. Oh, what's next? Lawnmower Man. Uh, I should like this story more because it deals with Pan and it's so bizarre. It is. It's another one that feels like almost like a Philip Dick story. If someone were to say this is a Philip Dick story, with the author's name ripped out, I might say, well, maybe. I mean, it's super bizarre that way. You don't really know what's going on in the story, I suppose. I mean, it's Pan is running this lawn mowing operation, and they're also murdering people. But the scene with the lawnmower man running behind the lawnmower that's running on its own, but he's eating the grass. It's gruesome and weird. And he's naked. It's got some great moment. Yeah, let's put it here. Quitters Inc. Quitters Inc. It's kind of like The Ledge. I think it's in that same area. It's realistic, but also not at the same. I mean, it's not supernatural. It's not a horror story so much, but it's also kind of unbelievable that this place exists. This is the one where someone wants to quit smoking. If they start smoking, they'll be spied on, and if they start smoking, the Quitters Inc. will torture their wife or son or children, or eventually start cutting off fingers, and eventually, if you pick up the cigarette too many times, they'll just kill you. As an unredeemable case, totally unbelievable. But I imagine if King was imagining he wanted to quit at this time, and it is hard to quit smoking, and that's one thing they explore in the story. Well, to some effect, but I don't know. Maybe better than The Ledge. I know what you want. Okay, this. Can I put it up here? um, let's put it here. This is one of the best, maybe the best story in the collection. Partially, I like it because it's exploring this. It's kind of exploring an incel, but an incel with like a supernatural powers. So, um, kind of like notice a lot of these top tier ones are him exploring the supernatural gifted people. And that's not by mistake. That's something he does really, really well, and he's never stopped doing it. I mean, the Institute still does it, right? You still have it in the Dark Tower novels until quite late. But this guy, the male main character here, is kind of he shines in a way, right? But he uses it really for perverse reasons. He uses it to try to seduce a woman he has a crush on, and he is upset he can't have that woman, and he manipulates her and gaslights her and uses his ability to really try to to get into her pants, and it's pretty horrible and to watch, and one of the more horrific stories in this collection. So I have a lot of affection for this story in that it really does have one of the more villainous characters that we see in this tier list. All right, Children of the Corn. I don't know. Put it in a C. There's the like the god that they're worshiping, the kids are worshiping. That's good stuff. Again, unlikable characters. Um, the kids are horrible. The adults are pretty horrible. It's like a married couple bickering all the time. It's not fun. It's not fun to read, and it's too long. And as cool as the idea is, I'll give them some credit for the cool idea. So we'll put it up here. But it's just not fun to read. I'm not a big fan of this story. It's been adapted to so many times too. All right, last rung on the ladder. Oh, this is great. This is up here with some. I know what you want. It's just beautiful. This story can make you cry, like the woman in the room. This one is really touching. This is the one about um, the siblings, and the sister kills herself after like becoming a like a sex worker and failing at everything in life, and he had neglected his relationship with her. And he thinks back after her suicide about their time as a kid, and the rung on the ladder thing is they used to play in this barn, and she almost fell, but he saves her life, or saves her from really horrible injury by building up the hay, and he's like drop, and she trusted him to catch her, or to save her life, and he does. And it shows that love between the siblings, which is really well done here. But as life moves on, you move away from your siblings, right? You don't pay as much attention to them. And saying this right now, I'm even thinking, maybe there's family members I need to call, right? Yeah, if one story in Night Shift is going to really affect you emotionally, I think it might be this one, even more so than the woman in the room. The Man Who Loved Flowers. I think this is the last one. Yeah, The Man Who Loved Flowers. I don't know. It's a serial killer, right? It's just a little weird story. It's really short. It's just about a serial killer buying flowers before murdering someone he thinks is um, like someone from his past. And it's a nice little vignette. It gets us into the head of a psycho pretty well, but there's not too much to say about it. So anyways, that's my tier list effort. Um, I will. So I think the next one I'll look at stuff from 1980 until 84. So we'll just do the first half of the 1980s, because there's so much to talk about. I think we may or may not have Skeleton Crew in that collection, but we do have different seasons, so there'll be plenty of works to talk about. But yeah, that's it. So let me know what you think about this ranking. If you disagree with me, um, a lot of these could maybe be changed. It's really subjective. That's how these things go. Um, but yeah, I think this looks right to me, more or less. So that's it for now. Okay, thanks for watching.